Hashtag Historical Stories for Sleep. Volume 2. Journeys Through Twilight. Hashtag Section 1. Introduction and the Thread of Evening. Welcome back, gentle traveler through time's peaceful corridors. As you settle into this moment, into this breath, into the welcoming embrace of rest, know that you are about to embark on another journey through history's quietest hours. These are not the moments recorded in chronicles of war and conquest, but something far more intimate, far more universal. The sacred transition from day to night that every human being has experienced since the dawn of our species. Take a deep breath now, drawing air slowly into your lungs, filling them completely, and then releasing that breath with a soft sigh, letting tension flow out of your body like water flowing downstream. Again, breathe in peace and calm. Breathe out worry and effort. One more time, breathing in the quiet of this moment, breathing out the noise of the day that has passed. Feel your body where it rests. Notice the surface beneath you, supporting you completely, asking nothing of you, simply holding you with steady, reliable presence. Your head rests heavily on its pillow. Your shoulders sink down, released from the burden of holding themselves up. Your back spreads wide against the bed, each vertebra settling into alignment. Your hips, your legs, your feet, all heavy, all relaxed, all perfectly supported. Tonight, we will visit 7 more evenings scattered across the centuries and around the globe. We will stand beside astronomers who read the heavens, scholars who preserved knowledge, storytellers who kept traditions alive, poets who captured beauty in words, and priests who marked the sacred rhythms of time. In each place, in each era, we will discover the same essential truth: that evening is humanity's oldest friend, arriving faithfully each day to offer rest, renewal, and the mysterious gift of sleep. There is a golden thread that connects all these evenings, all these moments of transition from light to darkness. It is woven through every culture, every civilization, every human life that has ever been lived. This thread is not made of gold, but of something more precious: the universal human need for rest, for peace, for the temporary release from consciousness that allows body and mind to heal and restore themselves. As we journey together through these 7 evenings, you may notice your breathing becoming slower, your thoughts becoming fewer and farther between, your sense of time and place beginning to blur and dissolve. This is natural and welcome. You are not required to hear every word or remember every detail. The stories will work their gentle magic whether you are fully conscious of them or drifting in that twilight realm between waking and sleeping. If you find yourself falling asleep before our journey is complete, that is perfect. If you remain aware throughout, that too is perfect. There is no right or wrong way to experience these stories. They are simply an offering, a companion for your journey into sleep, a friendly voice to walk beside you to the threshold of dreams. The people we will meet tonight lived in vastly different worlds from ours and from each other. They spoke different languages, worshipped different gods, organized their societies in different ways, understood the cosmos through different frameworks of knowledge. Yet in the essential experience of evening, the gathering darkness, the lighting of lamps, the quieting of activity, the preparation for sleep, they were exactly like us. The same stars that shone on them shine on us. The same moon that measured their months measures ours. The same fundamental rhythms of day and night, waking and sleeping, activity and rest that structured their lives structure ours. Tonight, we begin our journey in ancient Mesopotamia, in the land between 2 rivers, where human civilization first learned to write, to build cities, to measure time, and map the heavens. The sun is setting over Babylon, and we find ourselves climbing the steep steps of a ziggurat, an artificial mountain built to bring humans closer to the realm of the gods and to provide a platform for observing the eternal dance of stars and planets across the night sky. Let your breathing deepen now. Let your muscles soften. Let your mind become receptive and open, ready to receive these images from the distant past. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are perfectly positioned for rest. The only task before you is to listen, to imagine, and to allow yourself to gradually, gently, inevitably drift towards sleep. The journey begins. Time dissolves. We are stepping backward through the centuries, through millennia, finding our way to a warm evening in ancient Babylon, where the first systematic astronomers are preparing for another night of patient observation, of careful recording, of participating in humanity's eternal quest to understand our place in the vast and mysterious cosmos. Hashtag Section 2. Ancient Mesopotamia. Astronomers' Observatory, 1800 BCE. The heat of the Babylonian day is finally releasing its grip on the city. Nabu-Shuyukin, whose name means Nabu has established an heir, stands on the highest platform of the great ziggurat, feeling the first cool breeze of evening touch his face like a blessing from Ishtar herself. He is 43 years old, an astronomer priest in service to the Temple of Marduk, and he has climbed these steps every clear evening for 20 years, carrying with him the clay tablets on which he will record the positions and movements of the celestial bodies. The ziggurat rises in 7 levels, each one smaller than the one below, creating a stepped pyramid that dominates the skyline of Babylon. The lowest level is painted black, the color of primordial chaos from which all things emerged. The second level is white, the third red, the fourth blue, the fifth yellow, the sixth silver, and the seventh, where Nabu-Shuyukin now stands, is covered in gold leaf that catches the last rays of the setting sun and transforms them into holy fire. From this height, Nabu-Shuyukin can see the whole of Babylon spread below him. The great walls that make the city impregnable, the palace of King Hammurabi, the network of streets and canals that bring water from the Euphrates, the thousands of mud brick houses where ordinary citizens are now preparing their evening meals, smoke rising from cooking fires to blend with the violet sky. The Euphrates itself is visible, a ribbon of silver and bronze winding through the landscape, reflecting the fading light. The city is quieting. The market stalls have been packed away. The workshops of potters and weavers and metalworkers have closed their doors. Children are being called inside. Animals are being penned for the night. The great gates in the city walls are swinging shut, their bronze hinges groaning, guards taking up position to watch through the darkness. Babylon is preparing for night, drawing into itself like a flower closing its petals. Nabu-Shuyukin arranges his materials with the methodical care of long practice. He has brought 3 clay tablets, still damp and receptive to the stylus that hangs from a cord around his neck. These tablets are rectangular, each about the size of his hand, made from the same river mud that built the ziggurat beneath his feet, that forms the bricks of every building in Babylon, that sustains the crops in the fields surrounding the city. Clay is the foundation of Mesopotamian civilization, plastic and versatile, able to hold an impression almost forever if properly fired. He has also brought his measuring instruments, a gnomon for determining angles, a water clock for measuring time intervals, and most importantly, his observing tube, a hollow reed that helps him focus on specific stars and planets without distraction from the surrounding sky. These tools are simple but effective, refined over generations of observers who have stood on this same platform, watching the same sky, adding their observations to the growing body of knowledge that makes Babylon the center of astronomical learning in the world. The sun touches the western horizon now, and Nabu-Shuyukin begins the evening prayers. He turns to each of the 4 directions in turn, acknowledging the gods who rule the quarters of the earth and sky. To the east, he honors Shamash, the sun god, thanking him for another day of light and warmth. To the south, he honors Ea, god of wisdom and fresh water. To the west, he honors Sin, the moon god, asking for clear skies and steady observation. To the north, he honors the constellation Iku, the field, which marks the celestial equator. The prayers are ancient, passed down through generations of priests, their words worn smooth by countless repetitions like stones in a riverbed. Nabu-Shuyukin recites them not from a sense of empty ritual, but from genuine reverence. The gods are real to him, as real as the clay beneath his feet and the sky above his head. They are not abstractions, but living powers that govern the cosmos, that maintain the order necessary for civilization to flourish. As the sun slips below the horizon, the sky transforms rapidly. The deep blue of day gives way to purple, to violet, to a darkness that seems to emerge from the earth itself, rising to meet the descending night. The first stars appear, tentative at first, then with increasing confidence. Nobu Shinyukin knows them all by name, knows their positions and their movements, knows which ones are fixed in their places and which ones wander. The planets, whose irregular paths have fascinated him since he was a boy first learning the astronomer's art. There is Venus, the evening star, blazing brilliant in the western sky. The Babylonians call her Dilbat, and she is sacred to the goddess Ishtar. Nobu Shinyukin knows that Venus follows a complex pattern, sometimes appearing in the evening sky after sunset, sometimes in the morning sky before dawn, sometimes disappearing altogether for weeks at a time. He has spent years recording these movements, contributing his observations to the temple archives where centuries of data are preserved on thousands of tablets. He picks up his stylus, a small reed cut to a triangular point, and begins to press marks into the clay. The cuneiform script invented by his ancestors is perfect for this purpose, each character made of wedge-shaped impressions that can be formed quickly and clearly. He writes the date according to the lunar calendar, the 13th day of the month of Nisanu, in the 24th year of King Hammurabi's reign. He notes the time of sunset, measured by the water clock. He records the position of Venus relative to the stars of the constellation known as the hired man, what later cultures will call Aries. The work is meticulous, demanding absolute attention and precision. A single error in recording could corrupt the data, making it useless for future calculations. Nobu Shinyukin has trained himself to observe with cold accuracy, to set aside his expectations and record only what he actually sees. This is harder than it sounds. The mind wants to see patterns, wants to find order and regularity, but the sky does not always cooperate. Planets sometimes slow down, stop, reverse their motion for a time, then resume their forward journey. The moon's path across the sky shifts north and south in an 18-year cycle. Eclipses occur at irregular but calculable intervals. More stars emerge. The great constellations take shape against the darkening sky. There is Good Anna, the bowl of heaven, with its bright red star Aldebaran marking the bull's eye. There is Shudun, the yoke, which later peoples will call Lyra. There is Mul Apin, the plow, a group of stars that marks the beginning of spring when it rises before dawn. These constellations are not mere pictures in the sky, but markers of time, indicators of seasons, guides for agricultural and religious calendars. Nobu Shinyukin observes, measures, and records for several hours. The night grows darker and cooler. A breeze from the Euphrates carries the smell of water and mud, of fish and reeds, of life sustained by the great rivers that make this land fertile and habitable. He can hear the city below settling into sleep. Occasional voices drift up to him, a baby crying, a dog barking, the night watch calling out their signals to each other. But mostly there is silence, the profound quiet of a city at rest. He thinks, as he often does during these long nights of observation, about the relationship between the heavens and the earth. The Babylonians believe that the movements of celestial bodies influence events in the human realm. When planets meet in conjunction, when eclipses darken the sun or moon, when comets appear, these events are omens, messages from the gods that trained priests can read and interpret. Nobu Shinyukin has seen such omens, has participated in their interpretation, has advised the king based on what the stars revealed. But there is something more here, something deeper than mere divination. Through careful observation over generations, the astronomers of Babylon have discovered that the heavens follow patterns, that these patterns can be predicted, that the future positions of planets can be calculated based on their past movements. This is profound. It suggests that the cosmos operates according to laws, that chaos is not random but ordered, that knowledge is possible. This knowledge brings Nobu Shinyukin a deep sense of peace. In a world of uncertainty, of war and disease and crop failures, of kings who rise and fall, of empires that flourish and collapse, the stars are constant. They follow their appointed paths with absolute reliability. The same constellations that his grandfather observed are the ones he observes now, unchanged, eternal. The same planets that trace their wandering paths across the sky 500 years ago continue those same paths today. There is order in the universe, and that order is accessible to the patient observer. The moon rises now, several days past full, its light bright enough to cast shadows. Nobu Shiyukin records its position, notes that it rises approximately 50 minutes later than it did yesterday, just as his calculations predicted. The moon's movements are complex, more irregular than the sun's, but they too follow patterns that can be learned and anticipated. He feels the familiar tiredness settling into his bones, the pleasant exhaustion that comes from hours of focused concentration. His eyes ache from staring at the dark sky, straining to distinguish faint stars and to measure precise positions. His back is stiff from bending over his tablets. His fingers are cramped from holding the stylus. It is time to descend, to return to the temple complex at the base of the ziggurat, to the small room where he sleeps when his duties require him to remain at the temple overnight. Tomorrow he will transcribe his rough observations onto permanent tablets that will be filed in the temple archive, adding to the growing collection of astronomical knowledge that future generations will study and build upon. Nobu Shimiyukin gathers his tablets carefully, wrapping them in cloth to protect them from damage. He takes one last look at the sky, at the familiar patterns of stars, at the wandering planets, at the moon sailing serene through the darkness. He whispers a prayer of thanks to the gods of heaven, to Anu the sky god, to Enlil the god of air and storms, to Ea the wise, to Marduk patron of Babylon, to all the divine powers that maintain the cosmic order. He begins his descent, moving carefully in the darkness, his feet knowing the steps from years of practice. The golden platform above recedes, becoming just another point of light among many. The city sleeps below, dark except for scattered lamps and the eternal flame in Marduk's temple. The Euphrates flows on, as it has flowed for millennia, sustaining civilization, making life possible in this desert land. In his small room, simply furnished with a sleeping mat and a few personal possessions, Nobu Shiyukin lies down. The room is cool, the walls thick enough to insulate against the day's heat. Through a small window, he can still see a rectangle of star-filled sky. His last thought before sleep claims him is of the patterns he has observed, of the order underlying apparent chaos, of the deep reliability of the cosmos that turns and turns according to divine decree, regular as a heartbeat, eternal as the gods themselves. Section 3. Islamic Golden Age, Scholar's House in Baghdad, 850 CE. The call to Maghrib prayer drifts across Baghdad from 100 minarets, the muezzin's voices rising and falling in the haunting melody that marks the sunset. Ibrahim ibn Qasim al-Baghdadi sets down the Greek manuscript he has been translating, carefully placing a silk bookmark to mark his place, and rises from his cushioned seat. His body protests slightly. He is 58 years old, and hours of sitting cross-legged have left his knees stiff, but the discomfort is minor, easily ignored. His study occupies the second floor of his house in the Scholars' Quarter of Baghdad, not far from the Great Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, where he spends his days working alongside other scholars from across the Islamic world and beyond, Muslims and Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians, Arabs and Persians and Indians and Greeks, all united in the great project of preserving and translating and expanding human knowledge. The room is filled with books and manuscripts, stacked on shelves and piled on tables, written in a dozen languages: Arabic and Persian, Greek and Syriac, Sanskrit and Hebrew. Some are ancient texts that Ibrahim is translating into Arabic, making them accessible to scholars who do not read the original languages. Others are new works, commentaries and expansions on the ancient wisdom, contributions to the growing body of Islamic scholarship in mathematics and astronomy, medicine and philosophy, poetry and theology. Through the arched windows of his study, Ibrahim can see his courtyard garden below, designed in the Persian style with a central fountain, geometric flower beds, and fruit trees planted in the corners. The fountain's gentle splashing provides a constant background music, soothing and conducive to concentration. The garden is coming alive in the evening cool after the fierce heat of the afternoon. Birds are singing their evening songs. The scent of jasmine and roses drifts up to him, mixing with the smell of the oil lamps being lit throughout the house. Ibrahim performs his ablutions at the washstand in the corner of his study, the ritual washing of hands and face and feet that prepares him for prayer. The water is cool and refreshing, bringing clarity to his mind. He spreads his prayer rug on the floor, orienting it carefully toward Mecca, the direction indicated by the Qibla marker set into the wall. He stands in stillness for a moment, clearing his mind of the day's work, of the complex Greek grammar he has been wrestling with, of the philosophical problems that have occupied his thoughts. Prayer requires presence, full attention, the setting aside of worldly concerns. He begins the Maghrib prayer, moving through the prescribed postures, standing with hands folded, bowing, prostrating with forehead touching the rug, sitting. The Arabic words flow from his lips automatically, committed to memory through decades of daily repetition. Allahu Akbar, God is greatest. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Praise be to God, Lord of all the worlds. The prayer is not a request or a petition, but an acknowledgement of God's sovereignty, an act of submission and gratitude, a regular rhythm that structures the day and keeps the heart oriented toward the divine. The prayer complete, Ibrahim remains seated on his rug for a few moments, his hands open in supplication, offering quiet thanks for the blessings of his life, for the gift of learning, for the privilege of contributing to scholarship, for his health and his family, for the peace and prosperity that the Abbasid Caliphate has brought to this region, allowing arts and sciences to flourish as never before. He rises and rolls up his prayer rug, storing it in its customary place. From the courtyard below, he hears voices. His wife Zainab speaking with the cook about the evening meal, his daughter Fatima laughing at something. The sounds of family, of domestic life continuing its eternal routines, are deeply comforting to him. For all his love of scholarship and solitary study, he knows that these relationships are what give life its deepest meaning. Ibrahim returns to his manuscript, but he does not resume translating. The light is fading now, and the precision required for translation cannot be maintained by lamplight alone. Even the best oil lamps flicker and cast uncertain shadows, and a single mistranslation could corrupt the text and mislead future scholars. Instead, he picks up a different manuscript, one of his own compositions, a commentary on Aristotle's metaphysics that he has been working on intermittently for several years. The manuscript is written in his own hand, in the flowing Naskh script that has become standard for scholarly works, each letter carefully formed, diacritical marks precisely placed. The page is beautiful, but Ibrahim knows that beauty alone is not enough. The arguments must be sound, the logic impeccable, the insights genuine. Aristotle was a great philosopher, perhaps the greatest the world has known, but he was not infallible. In some areas, his understanding was limited by the knowledge available in his time. In other areas, his conclusions conflict with Islamic theology and must be carefully examined and, where necessary, refuted or reinterpreted. This is delicate work, requiring both deep respect for the ancient philosopher and independence of thought. Ibrahim has spent years studying Aristotle, reading not just the original Greek texts, but also commentaries by later Greek philosophers, by Syrian Christians, by earlier Muslim scholars. He has learned to distinguish between what Aristotle actually wrote and what later commentators attributed to him, between essential insights and culturally specific assumptions. A servant enters with a tray bearing a copper pot of tea, a small glass cup, and a plate of dates and almond pastries. Ibrahim accepts these gratefully, pouring tea from pot to cup and back again to cool it, then sipping slowly. The tea is mint-flavored, sweet and refreshing, a small pleasure that marks the transition from work time to evening time. He eats a date, savoring its intense sweetness, then an almond pastry, the delicate layers of phyllo dough flavored with rosewater and honey. The sky visible through his window is now deep blue, almost purple, with the first stars beginning to appear. Ibrahim knows these stars, not as well as the ancient Babylonian astronomers perhaps, but well enough. Islamic scholars have built upon the astronomical knowledge inherited from the Greeks and the Indians, creating more accurate star catalogs, developing better mathematical tools for calculating planetary positions, designing improved instruments for observation. Some of Ibrahim's colleagues at the House of Wisdom are engaged in precisely this work, standing on the shoulders of giants to see farther than those giants could see. He thinks about the chain of transmission of knowledge, the way wisdom passes from one generation and one culture to another, always being refined and expanded. The Greeks learned from the Egyptians, and the Babylonians. The Muslims are learning from the Greeks and the Indians and the Persians. And someday, Ibrahim believes, other cultures will learn from the Muslims, taking what Baghdad has preserved and expanded and carrying it forward into an unimaginable future. Knowledge is not the possession of any one people, but the common heritage of humanity, a light that can be shared infinitely without diminishing. From somewhere in the house comes the sound of a lute being played, his daughter Fatima practicing the melodies her music teacher has assigned her. The sound is sweet and melancholy, the notes rising and falling in patterns that please the ear even as they evoke a subtle longing for something beyond the material world. Music, poetry, mathematics, astronomy. These are paths to understanding the divine order, different languages for expressing the same fundamental truths about the nature of existence. Ibrahim's wife Zainab appears at the door of his study, a gentle reminder that the evening meal is ready. He sets aside his manuscript, descends the stairs to the ground floor where the family gathers for dinner. They eat in the Persian style, seated on cushions around a low table, sharing dishes from communal plates. Rice pilaf studded with saffron and dried fruits, roasted lamb flavored with cumin and coriander, vegetables cooked in olive oil, flatbread still warm from the oven, yogurt mixed with cucumber and mint. The conversation is pleasant and relaxed. Fatima tells of her day's studies, working her way through the classical poetry of pre-Islamic Arabia. Zainab discusses household matters and shares news from her visit to the market. Ibrahim's son Ahmad, who studies medicine, talks about a particularly interesting case he observed at the hospital. They are a family blessed by fortune and by God's grace, and they know it, never taking for granted the peace and prosperity they enjoy. After dinner, Ibrahim returns to his study, but only briefly. He is tired now, pleasantly so, his mind still active but his body ready for rest. He performs the Isha prayer, the final obligatory prayer of the day, then prepares for bed. His sleeping chamber is adjacent to his study, simply furnished with a low bed covered in fine linens, a chest for clothing, a small table with a water pitcher and basin. He lies down, his head resting on a firm pillow, his body relaxing into the mattress. Through the window, he can see the courtyard fountain still playing in the moonlight, its water silver and magical. He can hear the night sounds of Baghdad, distant voices, a dog barking, the clip-clop of a donkey's hooves on stone paving, the wind moving through date palms. The city is settling into sleep, a great organism of hundreds of thousands of souls, each with their own concerns and dreams, all held together by the complex web of civilization. Ibrahim's last conscious thoughts are of the manuscript he will return to tomorrow, of the philosophical problems he is working to resolve, of the eternal questions that have fascinated humans since they first achieved consciousness. What is the nature of being? What is the relationship between the one and the many? How does the eternal, unchanging reality of God relate to the temporal, changing reality of the created world? These are not merely abstract puzzles, but questions of ultimate importance, questions that shape how we live, how we understand our purpose, how we relate to the divine source from which all existence flows. Ibrahim has devoted his life to pursuing these questions, and he will continue pursuing them for as long as God grants him life and health and intellectual vigor. But for now, for this night, he releases them, trusting that tomorrow will bring new insights, new understandings, new steps along the infinite path toward wisdom. He sleeps, and in his sleep, he dreams of the house of wisdom, its shelves extending impossibly far in all directions, containing every book ever written and every book that will be written, all knowledge past and future held in that sacred space. He walks through aisles of manuscripts, pulling volumes at random, finding that each one he opens reveals exactly the knowledge he was seeking, answers questions he had not yet learned to ask. The dream is peaceful, purposeful, a reflection of his deepest values and aspirations. When morning comes and he wakes, he will not remember the specific details, but he will carry with him the dream's essence. The sense that knowledge is infinite, that wisdom is achievable, that the human mind, properly trained and directed, can ascend to heights that approach the divine. Section 4. Viking Settlement, Iceland Longhouse, 975 CE. The long northern twilight is finally giving way to true darkness. In the longhouse of Thorstein Grimson, the central fire has been built up, flames leaping high to cast dancing shadows on the wooden walls hung with shields and weapons. Outside, the first stars of winter are appearing in a sky that will soon be dark for most of each day, the sun barely rising above the southern horizon before setting again, leaving the Icelanders to pass the long nights in storytelling and craftwork, in the maintenance of tools, and the strengthening of community bonds. The longhouse is filled with the members of Thorstein's household and several families from neighboring farms who have come to hear Bjorn the Skald recite the evening saga. Bjorn is 70 years old, white-bearded and weathered, his voice still strong despite his years, his memory containing hundreds of stories passed down from generation to generation. He is more than an entertainer. He is a living library, a repository of history and mythology, a keeper of cultural memory in a society that does not write its most sacred stories, but preserves them in the minds of trained poets. The longhouse is a single large room, perhaps 20 meters long and 6 wide, with walls of turf-insulated timber and a roof of thatch that slopes down low on either side. Along the walls are sleeping benches where the household members will rest later, their space divided by hanging curtains for a minimum of privacy. In the center, the fire burns in a long stone-lined pit, smoke rising to escape through holes in the roof. The smoke never entirely leaves. It lingers in the rafters, preserving the timbers, giving the interior a characteristic smell of wood smoke that permeates everything: clothing, bedding, even the food. The people gather around the fire on benches and stools, on folded sheepskins and carved wooden seats. There are perhaps 40 people present, men and women, old and young, children who will struggle to stay awake, and elders who have heard these stories 1,000 times, yet never tire of them. They are dressed in wool and linen, practical clothing designed for the harsh Icelandic climate, tunics and trousers for men, long dresses with aprons for women, everyone wrapped in cloaks fastened with bronze brooches. Thorstein's wife Gudrun moves among the gathered people, offering drinks from a large horn, mead made from fermented honey, ale brewed from barley, milk fresh from the sheep. She is a woman of 50, strong and capable, managing a complex household with authority and grace. Her daughters help her, carrying wooden platters of food, dried fish, smoked mutton, hard cheese, flatbread, butter. This is not a feast, but the ordinary evening meal, substantial enough to sustain people through the cold night, simple enough not to deplete precious winter stores. Everyone eats and drinks, the food shared communally, conversation low and relaxed. There is a sense of anticipation building, a collective focusing of attention on Bjorn, who sits in the place of honor nearest the fire, his staff across his knees, his eyes closed as he gathers his thoughts and prepares to transport his listeners out of this time and place into the mythic past where gods and giants walked the earth. When Gudrun judges that everyone has eaten their fill, she nods to Bjorn. He opens his eyes, stands slowly, plants his staff on the packed earth floor. The conversation dies away. Children are hushed by their mothers. All eyes turn to the old skald. Bjorn begins to speak, his voice strong and rhythmic, falling into the patterns of alliterative verse that characterize Old Norse poetry. He recites in the ancient language, slightly different from the everyday speech of the Icelanders, more formal, filled with kennings, those beautiful metaphorical phrases that are one of the glories of Norse poetic tradition. The sea is the whale road, a sword is the ice of battle, blood is the wound due. These phrases are not mere decoration but a way of seeing, a poetic mode of perception that transforms the mundane into the mythic. Tonight, Bjorn recites the story of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, one of the great heroes of Germanic legend. The tale is long, spanning multiple generations, filled with magic swords and cursed gold, tragic love and terrible revenge, fate and doom, and the courage to face them with dignity. The listeners know the story already. They have heard it many times, but this does not diminish their engagement. The power of the story lies not in surprise, but in recognition, in the ritual repetition that connects them to their ancestors, to the shared cultural heritage that defines who they are as a people. Bjorn speaks of how young Sigurd was raised by the dwarf Regan, how he reforged his father's broken sword, how he slew the dragon Fafnir and took its treasure. He tells of the Valkyrie Brynhild sleeping in a ring of fire, of Sigurd riding through the flames to wake her, of their love and their oaths. His voice rises and falls dramatically, loud during battle scenes, soft during moments of intimacy, always maintaining the rhythmic pattern that makes the verses easy to remember and transmit. The fire burns lower as the story continues, and servants add more logs, stirring the embers until flames leap up again. The interplay of light and shadow intensifies the drama of the tale. When Bjorn speaks of Sigurd's death, betrayed and murdered by those he trusted, some of the women weep openly, though they know the story, though they have heard it dozens of times. The men sit stoic but attentive, their faces grave. The children watch with wide eyes, simultaneously thrilled and frightened by the tale's violence and tragedy. When the story concludes with the death of Brynhild, who chooses to follow Sigurd into the grave, riding her horse into his funeral pyre, Bjorn falls silent. The silence extends, no one wishing to break the spell. Outside, the wind has picked up, whistling through the gaps in the walls, reminding everyone of the fierce Icelandic winter that surrounds this small circle of warmth and light and human companionship. Finally, Thorstein speaks, thanking Bjorn for the gift of the story, presenting him with a silver arm ring as payment for his performance. Bjorn accepts with grave courtesy, sliding the ring onto his arm, where it joins several others, marks of honor from other chieftains at other storytelling sessions. The formalities complete, conversation resumes, but more quietly now, the story having created a contemplative mood. Young people begin to drift toward their sleeping places, pulling curtains for privacy, settling onto the benches with their blankets and pillows. Children are carried by their mothers, already asleep or nearly so, lulled by the warmth and the rhythmic sound of Bjorn's voice. The elderly also retire, the day's work having tired them, the hard labor of survival in this harsh land demanding rest. But a group remains around the fire, Thorstein and several other men, some of the older women including Gudrun and Bjorn himself. They sit in companionable silence for a while, then begin to speak of practical matters, plans for the next day's work, discussion of which sheep should be slaughtered for winter meat, consideration of whether the hay stores will last until spring, speculation about which families might need assistance to get through the lean months ahead. This is the other side of Viking life, less celebrated in the sagas, but equally important. The cooperation and mutual support that makes survival possible in a marginal environment. Iceland is not a rich land. The growing season is short, the climate harsh, the resources limited. Only through careful planning and communal effort can the people endure. The fire burns lower again, and this time it is not rebuilt. The evening is ending. Thorstein banks the embers carefully, covering them with ash so they will stay alive until morning when they can be rekindled. Wasting fire is wasteful of fuel, and fuel, whether wood or dried sheep dung, is too precious to squander. The remaining people retire to their sleeping places. Bjorn is given an honored place on a bench near where the fire was, with extra sheepskins for warmth. Thorstein and Gudrun withdraw to their private chamber at the far end of the longhouse, separated from the common area by a wooden partition. In the darkness, the longhouse settles. There are the usual night sounds. People shifting in their sleep, someone coughing, a child whimpering briefly before being soothed, the wind outside, the timbers creaking. But mostly there is silence and warmth, the profound comfort of shelter against the northern winter, of human presence in a land that can seem hostile and empty. Bjorn lies on his bench, wrapped in furs and wool blankets, feeling the day's tiredness settling into his old bones. He has told stories in dozens of longhouses across Iceland, has traveled from settlement to settlement, carrying the cultural heritage of his people in his memory. He knows that his time is growing short, that within a few years his voice will fall silent, and the stories he carries must be passed to younger skalds who are even now learning the ancient verses, memorizing the genealogies, mastering the complex meters and the intricate kennings. But tonight, he does not dwell on endings. Instead, he thinks about the story he has just told, about Sigurd and Brynhild, about love and betrayal, courage and doom. These stories are more than entertainment. They teach values, reinforce cultural norms, provide models for behavior. Sigurd's courage in the face of certain death, Brynhild's loyalty even beyond life. These are virtues that the Icelanders honor, that they strive to embody in their own lives. Through a gap in the turf walls, Bjorn can see a slice of night sky. The stars are brilliant here, far from any other source of light, uncountable in their multitudes. Somewhere up there, he believes, is Valhalla, the Hall of the Slain, where warriors who die bravely in battle feast with Odin until Ragnarok, the final battle at the end of time. Whether he will go to Valhalla or to Hell, the realm of those who die of age or illness, he does not know. But he has lived a good life, has served his people faithfully, has kept the stories alive. That will have to be enough. His breathing slows and deepens. Around him, the longhouse breathes as one organism. 40 people rising and falling together, their collective warmth fighting back the cold, their collective presence a declaration of human resilience in the face of a harsh and indifferent nature. Outside, the aurora borealis begins to dance across the northern sky, great curtains of green and purple light swaying and rippling, a phenomenon the Icelanders attribute to the Valkyries riding across the heavens, choosing which warriors will die in battle tomorrow. But inside the longhouse, no one sees this celestial display. They are all asleep, gathering strength for another day, trusting that tomorrow will come and that they will face it together, as they have faced every challenge since their ancestors first settled this volcanic island at the edge of the known world. Hashtag Section 5. Ancient China, Imperial Garden, Song Dynasty 1100 CE. The moon rises over Hangzhou, transforming the West Lake into a mirror of silver, reflecting the willow trees that line its shore, the arched bridges that span its inlets, the distant pagodas that mark temples on surrounding hills. In the Imperial Garden, in a pavilion designed specifically for moon viewing, the court poet Li Qingzhao sits at a low table, brush in hand, silk paper before her, attempting to capture in words the ineffable beauty of this autumn evening. Li Qingzhao is 47 years old, one of the most celebrated poets of the Song Dynasty, known for her mastery of the CI form, lyric poems set to popular melodies. She is a woman of exceptional education and refinement, the daughter of a scholar official, the wife of a fellow scholar who shares her passion for literature and antiquities. In a society that generally restricts women's roles, she has achieved recognition for her literary talent, her poems copied and circulated among the educated elite, her opinions on poetry respected even by male scholars. The pavilion where she sits is a masterpiece of subtle design. Its columns are red lacquered wood, its roof green glazed tile curving upward at the corners in the characteristic Chinese style. The walls are open on 3 sides, allowing unobstructed views of the lake and garden while providing shelter from above. The floor is polished stone, cool beneath her silk slippers. A small brazier provides warmth without smoke, burning fine charcoal that glows red but produces no flames. On the table before her are the implements of her art, several brushes of different sizes, their bristles made from rabbit or weasel hair, an inkstone carved from dark stone, its surface worn smooth by years of use, an inkstick made from pine soot and glue, which she has ground with water to produce liquid ink, sheets of paper made from mulberry bark, each one precious, each one demanding that what is written be worthy of the material. Li Qingzhao dips her brush in the ink, holds it poised above the paper, waiting for the right words to come. Poetry cannot be forced. It must arise naturally, like water from a spring, like these moonbeams falling on the lake. She has learned through decades of practice to cultivate the state of mind where poems emerge, a combination of intense attention and profound relaxation, of technical mastery and spontaneous inspiration. The garden around her is designed to evoke specific aesthetic and emotional responses. Every element has been carefully positioned. The rocks chosen for their suggestive shapes and placed to suggest mountains, the pond dug to suggest a lake, the plants selected for their seasonal interest and symbolic meanings. Pine trees represent longevity and endurance. Bamboo represents flexibility and integrity. Plum blossoms, which bloom in late winter, represent resilience and hope. The garden is not a wild nature, but nature refined and perfected, nature as it might exist in the realm of the immortals. A servant approaches silently, sets down a pot of tea and a small ceramic cup. The tea is Longjing, Dragonwell tea, grown in the hills near Hangzhou, one of the finest teas in China. Li Qingzhao pours the tea with the attention that such quality deserves, watching the leaves unfurl in the hot water, inhaling the delicate fragrance that rises with the steam. She sips slowly, letting the subtle flavors develop on her tongue, a slight sweetness, a hint of chestnut, a clean freshness that clears the mind. The moon continues its ascent, moving perceptibly across the sky, though its movement can only be detected by noting its position relative to the pavilion's roof, to the branches of nearby trees. Li Qingzhao thinks about impermanence, a central theme in Buddhist philosophy that has deeply influenced Chinese poetry. Everything is always changing, always in flux. The moon that seems so constant is itself waxing and waning in an eternal cycle. The beauty of this moment exists only in this moment and will never exist again in quite this way. This awareness does not make the beauty less, but more precious, more poignant. Words begin to form in her mind, phrases that capture something of what she is experiencing. She touches brush to paper and begins to write, each character formed with practiced elegance, the brush moving in prescribed strokes that she learned as a child and has repeated millions of times since. Chinese calligraphy is both writing and art, the visual form of the characters as important as their meaning. A poem written in beautiful calligraphy is twice blessed, appealing to both the mind and the eye. She writes, "Alone in the pavilion / the moon's reflection / doubles my solitude." Then she pauses, reading what she has written, considering whether it truly captures her experience or is merely conventional, repeating what other poets have said 1,000 times before. The line about doubled solitude is good, she thinks, the paradox of seeing oneself reflected in nature, of finding one's inner state mirrored in the external world. But she is not satisfied. The poem needs to go deeper, to find some insight that is fresh, that adds to the vast body of Chinese poetry rather than simply echoing it. She sets down her brush and returns to simply observing, to being present to the moment without the mediating ambition of capturing it in words. A gentle breeze stirs the surface of the lake, disturbing the moon's reflection, breaking it into fragments that dance and shimmer. The image reminds her of the Buddhist teaching about the nature of self, that what we think of as a solid, continuous identity is actually a collection of ever-changing moments, like these fragments of moonlight on water, appearing to cohere but actually in constant flux. She picks up her brush again and adds to her poem. The wind scatters / the moon into 10,000 pieces / each one complete. This is better, she thinks. This approach is something true, something that adds a small note to the great symphony of Chinese literature that stretches back 3,000 years. The night deepens. The air grows cooler, and Li Qingzhao pulls her silk robe more closely around her shoulders. She has been sitting here for hours now, and her body is stiff from maintaining the formal posture that proper deportment requires. But she is reluctant to leave this place, this perfect conjunction of moon and garden, this state of mind that is both alert and deeply peaceful. She thinks about her life, about the good fortune that has allowed her to pursue poetry, about the education she received that most women are denied, about her husband who encourages her literary work rather than seeing it as inappropriate for a woman. She thinks about the poems she has written over the decades, scattered through the empire on countless copies, read by strangers who will never meet her, but who might find in her words some reflection of their own experiences, their own longings and insights. This is the gift of poetry, she reflects, to bridge the gap between individual consciousnesses, to allow one person's carefully crafted words to resonate in another person's mind, creating a moment of understanding, of recognition, of shared humanity. When someone 1,000 years from now reads her poem about this autumn evening, they will experience something of what she is experiencing now, and in that moment, time will collapse, and they will be connected across the centuries. But such thoughts are perhaps too grand, too self-important. Li Qingzhao reminds herself that humility is essential to the artistic life. She is simply one poet among thousands, doing her small part to keep the tradition alive, to add her voice to the great chorus. Whether her poems survive or are forgotten is not ultimately important. What matters is the attention she brings to this moment, the care with which she selects each character, the honesty with which she examines her own experience. She completes the poem, adding several more lines that develop the initial insight about the fragmented moon, bringing the piece to a satisfying conclusion. She sets down her brush and reads the finished work aloud, softly, listening to the sounds of the words as much as their meanings. Chinese is a tonal language, and poetry makes use of these tones, creating patterns of sound that reinforce the patterns of meaning. Satisfied at last, she sets the poem aside to dry. Tomorrow she will review it with fresh eyes, perhaps make small revisions, perhaps decide it is finished and have it copied for her collection. But tonight, her work is complete. She has transformed her experience into language, has made something that did not exist before, has participated in the ancient human endeavor of giving form to the formless, words to the wordless. She rises from her seat, her knees protesting slightly, and walks to the edge of the pavilion. The garden stretches before her, mysterious in the moonlight, familiar paths transformed into something strange and dreamlike. In the distance, she can hear the night watch calling out the hour, can smell incense drifting from a nearby temple where monks maintain their vigil through the darkness. Li Qingzhao returns to the main residence, walking slowly along stone paths that wind through carefully composed views, past rockeries and ponds, through moon gates that frame particular vistas. The house, when she reaches it, is quiet, most of the household already asleep. Servants have left lanterns lit to guide her way, pools of warm light in the darkness. In her private chamber, simply but elegantly furnished with a carved wooden bed, a clothes chest, a small altar with an image of Guanyin, the bodhisattva of compassion, Li Qingzhao prepares for sleep. She removes her outer robes, folds them carefully, and lies down on the silk-covered mattress. A maid has already warmed the bed with heated stones, which have since been removed, leaving behind a pleasant warmth. Through the paper window screens, she can still see the moon, now high overhead, flooding the world with cool light. She thinks one last time about her poem, about the fragmented moon that is somehow still complete in each fragment. This, she realizes, is true not just of moonlight, but of all existence. Each moment contains the whole. Each experience is complete in itself. Each poem, however brief and imperfect, captures something of the infinite mystery that surrounds and sustains us. She closes her eyes, her breathing deepening, and sleep comes gently, carrying her into dreams where she floats above the West Lake, where the moon is both above her and below her, where poetry and reality blend together until there is no distinction, until she herself becomes a poem written in moonlight on water, read by the eyes of the night, understood by the silence that holds all words. Hashtag Section 6. Pre-Columbian Maya, Observatory Platform, 900 CE. The sun descends behind the Great Pyramid of Kukulkan, its light setting the limestone temple aflame with shades of gold and crimson, while the jungle that surrounds Chichen Itza erupts with the evening chorus of howler monkeys, their calls echoing across the plaza like the voices of ancient gods. On the circular observatory platform known as El Caracol, the astronomer priest at Samnabalam stands ready for another night of observation, his painted codex open to a fresh page of bark paper, his obsidian stylus prepared to record the positions of Venus, the brilliant wanderer the Maya call Chuk Ek, Great Star. Samnabalam is 52 years old, his dark hair now streaked with gray, his face marked with the tattoos that indicate his high status as a keeper of sacred knowledge. He has served as an astronomer priest for 30 years, following in the footsteps of his father and grandfather before him, part of a lineage that stretches back countless generations. The Maya are perhaps the greatest astronomers the world has ever known, their observations more precise than those of the Greeks or the Chinese, their calendars more accurate than any system that will exist for another 1,000 years. The observatory is a marvel of engineering and astronomical insight. Its circular design is unique among Maya buildings, which are typically rectangular. The building rises in 3 tiers, with a spiral staircase inside, hence the Spanish name El Caracol, the snail. At the top is a chamber with windows positioned to mark significant astronomical events: the spring and autumn equinoxes, the summer solstice, the extreme positions of Venus in its cycle. The Maya did not build this observatory through accident or aesthetics, but through precise mathematical calculation and generations of careful observation. As the last light fades from the sky, Itsamnabalam performs the evening ritual, burning copal incense in a clay brazier, the sweet smoke rising toward the heavens. He chants prayers in the ancient language, invoking the celestial gods: Itsamna, the sky god after whom he is named; Chok, the rain god whose benevolence determines whether the maize will flourish or fail; Han Hunapu, the maize god who died and was reborn, teaching humans the eternal cycle of death and renewal; and especially Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, whose pyramid dominates the sacred center of Chichen Itza. The prayers complete, Itsamnabalam turns his attention to the heavens. Venus is already visible, brilliant in the western sky, so bright it seems almost to pulse with light. The Maya understand that Venus is both evening star and morning star, the same celestial body appearing in different parts of the sky, depending on its position relative to Earth and Sunday. They have tracked its movements for centuries, discovering that Venus returns to the same position in the sky every 584 days, a cycle they can predict with perfect accuracy. This knowledge is not merely academic. Venus is associated with warfare and sacrifice, its appearances and disappearances marking propitious times for these activities. Kings plan campaigns based on Venus's position. Priests schedule ceremonies to coincide with its cycles. The entire Maya world is organized according to celestial rhythms, the heavens and the earth locked in a sacred dance that the priests must understand and interpret. Itsamnabalam makes careful measurements using a crossed staff, an instrument that allows him to determine the angular distance between celestial objects. He records Venus's position relative to several fixed stars, noting the exact time by observing which constellation is rising in the east. The Maya measure time with obsessive precision, maintaining multiple calendars simultaneously. The Tzolk'in, a 260-day sacred calendar; the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar; and the Long Count, which tracks days from a mythical creation date thousands of years in the past. The night is warm and humid, typical of the Yucatan lowlands. The air is thick with moisture, and Itsamnabalam can feel sweat forming on his skin despite the lack of physical exertion. The jungle surrounding the city is alive with sound. Insects chirring, frogs calling from the cenotes, the limestone sinkholes that provide water in this land without rivers, night birds crying their haunting songs. These sounds do not disturb him, but rather provide a rhythmic backdrop to his observations, connecting him to the natural world that is itself part of the cosmic order he is attempting to understand and record. As the night deepens, more stars become visible. The Maya have mapped the heavens comprehensively, identifying constellations and giving them names drawn from their mythology and their agricultural life. There is the turtle constellation, associated with the creation myth. There is the maize god constellation, marking the planting season. There is the celestial crocodile, whose mouth is the dark rift in the Milky Way, thought to be a road to the underworld. Itsamnabalam thinks about the layers of time that the Maya recognize. There is the immediate time of daily life, of planting and harvest, of birth and death. There is the longer time of Venus cycles and solar eclipses, of Katuns, periods of 20 years, and Bactuns, periods of 400 years. And there is the almost incomprehensibly vast time of the Long Count, measuring epochs lasting thousands of years, placing human existence within a cosmic framework that dwarfs individual lives. This understanding of time's vastness does not diminish human importance, but rather places it in proper perspective. Each person is a brief flash of consciousness in an eternal cycle, like a spark rising from a fire, existing brilliantly for a moment before returning to darkness. What matters is not the duration of that spark, but its quality, its contribution to the sacred order, its fulfillment of the cosmic purpose. Several hours pass. Itsamnabalam continues his observations, recording the movements of planets and the rising times of stars, adding his night's data to the accumulated knowledge preserved in the codices that are Chichen Itza's most precious possession. These books, painted on bark paper and folded accordion style, contain centuries of astronomical observations, mathematical calculations, ritual instructions, historical records. They represent the cumulative wisdom of the Maya civilization, each generation adding to what came before, building an edifice of knowledge that rivals anything achieved by the Old World civilizations. Finally, Itzamnabalam feels the tiredness settling into his body. He has been standing for hours, his neck stiff from looking upward, his eyes strained from peering at faint stars. He closes his codex carefully, wrapping it in cloth to protect it from humidity, and descends the spiral staircase of the observatory, his feet knowing the steps even in darkness. The plaza of Chichen Itza is quiet at this hour, the great buildings reduced to geometric shadows against the star-filled sky. The pyramid of Kukulkan rises in stepped levels, seeming to merge with the darkness above, creating a connection between earth and heaven. This is intentional. All Maya architecture is designed to reflect cosmic principles, to create on earth a mirror of the celestial realm. Itzamnabalam walks slowly toward his residence, a stone house near the sacred cenote where he lives with his wife and 3 children. The house is modest compared to the great temples and palaces, but comfortable, with walls plastered and painted with geometric designs, floors covered with woven mats, a small courtyard with a kitchen hearth. His wife has left a clay lamp burning, its flame fed by oil from native palms, casting a soft glow through the doorway. Inside, the house is still and quiet. His family sleeps on woven hammocks suspended from wooden posts, a sleeping arrangement perfectly suited to the hot climate, allowing air to circulate around the body. Itzamnabalam removes his ceremonial garments, the jaguar skin cape that marks his priestly status, the jade ornaments that signify his rank, and stores them carefully in a wooden chest. He washes his face and hands in a ceramic basin, the water cool and refreshing. He climbs into his hammock, feeling it adjust to his weight, cradling him gently. Through the doorway, he can still see a slice of night sky, still see Venus blazing brilliant in its eternal dance. He thinks about the observations he made tonight, about the patterns emerging from the data, about the predictions they will allow him to make. The ability to predict celestial events is a form of power, but also a form of responsibility. The priests serve as intermediaries between the gods and the people, interpreting divine will, maintaining the cosmic order through ritual and sacrifice. The responsibility weighs heavily at times, but tonight Itzamnabalam feels at peace. He has fulfilled his duties, has added his small contribution to the great work of understanding the heavens. Tomorrow he will rise before dawn to observe Venus as morning star, will spend the day studying the codices and discussing interpretations with other priests, will return to the observatory when night falls. The cycle continues, day after day, year after year, each observation another thread in the vast tapestry of Maya astronomical knowledge. He closes his eyes, and sleep comes easily, bringing dreams of flying above the jungle, of seeing the cities of the Maya spread below like stars on Earth, of ascending toward the real stars until he merges with them, becoming part of the eternal light that guides and sustains all life, the celestial fire that will burn long after he and his civilization have returned to the dust from which all things arise and to which all things must return. Hashtag Section 7, Medieval West Africa, Timbuktu Scholar, 1450 CE. The afternoon heat is finally breaking as the sun descends toward the Sahara, turning the desert sands gold and amber, painting the mud brick buildings of Timbuktu in shades of honey and ochre. In the courtyard of his house near the Sankor Mosque, the scholar Ahmad ibn Ahmad al-Takruri sits beneath an acacia tree, reviewing a manuscript that has just arrived from Cairo, a commentary on the Quran by the great Egyptian scholar Al-Suyuti, copied onto fine paper and bound in tooled leather. Ahmad ibn Ahmad is 65 years old, a respected scholar of Islamic law and theology, a teacher at the Sankor University that has made Timbuktu one of the great centers of learning in the Islamic world. Students come from across West Africa and beyond to study here, attracted by the quality of the teaching, the richness of the libraries, the opportunity to obtain certificates of learning that will qualify them to teach and judge throughout the Muslim world. The courtyard where he sits is typical of Timbuktu's wealthier homes, enclosed by high walls for privacy, with a covered veranda running along one side providing shade, a well in the center providing water, clay pots planted with herbs, and flowers adding life and fragrance. The acacia tree is old, its branches spreading wide, its thorns sharp but its shade welcome. A rope hammock is suspended from two of its branches, and ibn Ahmad often naps there during the hottest hours of the afternoon. Now, as evening approaches, the courtyard is pleasant, the temperature dropping from scorching to merely warm. Ibn Ahmad reads slowly, making notes on a separate sheet of paper, considering Al-Suyuti's arguments, comparing them to other commentaries he has studied. The work of scholarship is incremental, demanding patience and thoroughness. One does not simply read but studies, cross-references, memorizes, challenges, integrates new knowledge with what one already knows. The call to prayer rises from the nearby Sankor Mosque, the muezzin's voice strong and clear in the evening air. Ibn Ahmad sets aside his manuscript, marks his place carefully, and enters his house to perform ablutions and pray. The house is built in the traditional Sudanese style, with thick mud brick walls that provide insulation against both heat and cold, small windows that admit light while minimizing heat gain, a flat roof where one can sleep during the hot season. Prayer complete, Ibn Ahmad returns to the courtyard, where his wife Fatima has prepared the evening meal. She is 58, a woman of intelligence and grace, herself literate, not common even in Timbuktu, where education is valued highly. They have been married 40 years, have raised 7 children, 5 of whom survived to adulthood. 3 of their sons are now scholars in their own right, carrying forward the family tradition of learning. They eat together in the fading light, rice cooked with meat and vegetables, flavored with spices that have traveled the trans-Saharan trade routes from North Africa and beyond, pepper from India, cinnamon from Ceylon, ginger from China. Timbuktu sits at the crossroads of 2 great trade networks, the Niger River connecting West Africa's kingdoms, and the Saharan caravan routes connecting to the Mediterranean world. Gold and slaves move north, salt and manufactures move south, books and scholars move in all directions. After the meal, Ibn Ahmad walks through the streets of Timbuktu toward the marketplace. The city is coming alive in the evening cool, people emerging from their houses now that the brutal heat has passed. The market never entirely closes, but it intensifies as night approaches. Merchants displaying their wares by lamplight, food vendors offering grilled meat and fried pastries, storytellers gathering crowds, musicians playing traditional instruments, the kora with its haunting harp-like sound, the talking drum that can mimic human speech. Ibn Ahmad pauses to listen to a griot, a professional storyteller and praise singer, recounting the history of the Mali Empire and its greatest ruler, Mansa Musa, who a century earlier made a pilgrimage to Mecca so magnificent, distributing so much gold along the way, that he temporarily disrupted the economies of the regions through which he passed. The story is both history and legend, facts embellished by poetic elaboration, but its essential truth is undeniable. West Africa is rich, powerful, sophisticated, a civilization equal to any in the world. As darkness falls completely, Ibn Ahmad makes his way to the library attached to the Sankor Mosque. Timbuktu has dozens of private libraries and several public ones, containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts on every subject: theology and law, astronomy and mathematics, medicine and poetry, history and geography. These books represent the intellectual wealth of the city, more valuable than the gold that passes through Timbuktu's markets. For knowledge is the only wealth that increases when shared. The library is quiet at this hour, lit by oil lamps that cast warm light over the shelves of manuscripts. A few students remain, bent over texts, making notes, memorizing passages. Ibn Ahmad greets them quietly, then makes his way to a particular shelf where he knows a manuscript he needs is stored. A copy of Ibn Sina's Canon of Medicine, one of the foundational texts of Islamic medical knowledge. He has been consulting this work in preparation for teaching a course on medical ethics, on the physician's obligations to patients, on the integration of Greek and Islamic medical traditions. Ibn Sina, known in Europe as Avicenna, was a Persian polymath who lived 400 years earlier, whose works have become standard references throughout the Islamic world. Ahmad ibn Ahmad has read the canon several times before, but each reading reveals new insights, new connections to other texts and traditions. He settles into a comfortable position on a cushion, the manuscript on a wooden stand before him, and begins to read by lamplight. The Arabic text is beautifully copied, each letter formed with care, diacritical marks precisely placed. The copyist who created this manuscript was himself a scholar, understanding what he copied, occasionally adding marginal notes with additional information or cross-references to other works. Time passes unmeasured. Ahmad ibn Ahmad is absorbed in his reading, his mind following the intricate arguments, comparing them to what he knows from other sources, considering how he will present this material to his students. The work of teaching is not merely transmitting information, but creating understanding, helping students see connections, encouraging them to think critically and independently. Finally, his eyes grow tired from reading by lamplight. He has learned not to push beyond this point, having damaged his vision somewhat in earlier years through excessive night reading. He closes the manuscript carefully, returns it to its place on the shelf, and takes his leave of the library, nodding to the students who remain, young men from across West Africa pursuing knowledge with the intensity that will make them tomorrow's scholars and judges and teachers. Walking home through the darkened streets, guided by the light of a crescent moon and the lamps burning outside houses and shops, Ahmad ibn Ahmad reflects on his life and work. He has been privileged beyond most, granted the opportunity to devote himself to learning, to teach students who will carry knowledge forward into the future, to live in a city where intellectual pursuits are honored and supported. Not everyone has such fortune. Most people labor at trades and agriculture, their lives consumed by the necessities of survival. He has been able to pursue knowledge for its own sake, and this is a gift from God that demands gratitude and service in return. At home, he finds Fatima preparing their bed on the roof, where they will sleep during these warm months. The rooftop provides a sleeping place that captures any breeze, a space open to the stars, a vantage point from which one can see across the city and out toward the desert. They climb the narrow stairs, carrying blankets and pillows, and arrange their sleeping place on the woven mats that cover the roof. The city spreads below them, a constellation of flickering lamps and cooking fires. The Niger River is visible in the distance, a dark ribbon cutting through the landscape, its presence sustaining all life in this region. Without the river, Timbuktu could not exist. The Sahara surrounds the city on three sides, beautiful but implacable, a barrier that caravans cross with difficulty and danger, losing camels and sometimes men to the harsh conditions. Ahmad ibn Ahmad and Fatima lie on their backs, looking up at the stars. The sky is extraordinarily clear, the air dry, the stars brilliant and countless. They can see the Milky Way stretching across the heavens, that great river of light that mirrors the earthly river below. Ahmad ibn Ahmad points out constellations, teaching their Arabic names to Fatima, who listens with patient interest though she has heard these names many times before. They speak quietly about their day, about their children and grandchildren, about plans for the future, about memories of the past. This nightly conversation has been part of their marriage for decades, a time of connection and intimacy, of maintaining the bonds that sustain a long partnership. They pray together one last time, the Isha prayer that marks the night's beginning, their voices soft in the darkness. Then they settle into sleep, wrapped in thin blankets, the stars wheeling slowly overhead, the city quiet except for the occasional bark of a dog or call of the night watch. Ahmad ibn Ahmad's last conscious thought is of gratitude, for his wife beside him, for his work and his students, for the manuscripts that preserve knowledge, for this city at the edge of the desert that has become a light of learning in the world, for the gift of another day of life and the promise of rest and renewal in sleep. He dreams of libraries, infinite shelves stretching in all directions, every manuscript ever written, every work of knowledge and beauty, all preserved and accessible. He walks through these dream libraries, pulling books at random, finding that each contains exactly what he needs to know, answers to questions he has not yet learned to ask. The dream is peaceful, suffused with the satisfaction of learning, the joy of discovery, the sense that knowledge itself is infinite, and that the pursuit of it is perhaps the highest calling a human can follow, the closest we can come to understanding the divine wisdom that created and sustains the universe. Hashtag Section 8. Closing meditation and the eternal night. And now, dear traveler, our journey through these 7 evenings draws to its gentle close. We have stood with astronomers in Babylon and Chichen Itza, watching them map the heavens with patient dedication. We have sat with scholars in Baghdad and Timbuktu, seeing them preserve and expand human knowledge. We have listened to skalds in Iceland telling stories that connect past to present. We have accompanied poets in China composing verses that capture the ineffable beauty of moonlight on water. Each of these people, separated by centuries and continents, engaged in the same fundamental human activities: observing, learning, creating, preserving, passing forward what they discovered. They are connected to us not despite the vast distances of time and space that separate us, but because those distances are ultimately illusions. In the experience of evening, in the practice of their crafts, in the universal need for rest and sleep, they are our companions, our ancestors, our teachers. Feel yourself now settling more deeply into rest, your body heavy and relaxed, your breathing slow and effortless. You have journeyed far tonight, yet you have never left the place where you lie. This is the paradox of imagination, of consciousness itself, that we can travel anywhere while remaining perfectly still, that we can visit any time while remaining in the eternal present moment. Your eyelids are heavy now, or perhaps already closed, resting comfortably, requiring no effort to maintain their position. The muscles of your face are soft, released from the work of holding expressions. Your jaw hangs loose, your tongue rests peacefully in your mouth. Your whole face becomes smooth and peaceful, like the face of a sleeping child, innocent and untroubled. The people we visited tonight have all passed from life into death. Their bodies return to earth. Their individual consciousness is extinguished. Yet something of them remains. Their observations recorded in astronomical tables, their translations preserved in manuscripts, their poems copied and recopied across centuries, their stories passed from generation to generation. They live on in the work they did, in the knowledge they preserved, in the beauty they created. And you, too, are part of this great chain of human existence. Your life, like theirs, is brief, a spark that flares and fades. But while it burns, it contributes light to the world. The work you do, the relationships you maintain, the kindness you show, the attention you bring to your experience, all of this matters. All of this adds to the great human project of making meaning, creating beauty, increasing understanding. But these are thoughts for waking hours. Now is the time to release all thoughts, all concerns, all the constant activity of the conscious mind. Now is the time to sink into that blessed emptiness where sleep dwells, where dreams are born, where the body repairs itself, and the mind processes the day's experiences without conscious effort or control. Breathe slowly now, in and out, each breath carrying you deeper into relaxation, closer to sleep. Notice how your body has become so heavy it seems to be sinking through the mattress, through the floor, merging with the earth itself. You are supported completely, held by gravity, by the solid ground beneath you, by the very planet that has held all humans who have ever lived, that has witnessed all our striving and our resting, our achievements and our failures, our births and our deaths. The stars that Nabu Shayukin observed in ancient Babylon still shine tonight. Though many of the constellations he knew have been forgotten, their names lost, their patterns redrawn by later cultures. The same moon that Li Qingzhao celebrated in her poetry rises and sets above you, waxing and waning in the eternal cycle that has measured human months since our species first achieved consciousness. Venus still blazes in the evening or morning sky, following the intricate pattern that its Samna Balam charted with such precision. The knowledge preserved in the libraries of Baghdad and Timbuktu has passed into the great stream of human learning, influencing thinkers and discoveries in ways the original scholars could never have imagined. The stories that Bjorn told beside the fire in Iceland have evolved and changed, but continue to be told in new forms, new languages, maintaining their essential power to move and instruct us. Everything changes, and nothing is lost. Everything dies, and nothing truly ends. The forms shift and transform, but the underlying patterns persist. This is the wisdom that all these cultures discovered, each in their own way, that we are part of something larger than ourselves, something that transcends individual existence, something eternal. Let yourself merge with this eternal pattern now. Let the boundaries of your individual self become permeable, dissolving like salt in water. You are not separate from the world, but part of it, made of the same elements, following the same rhythms, participating in the same great dance of existence that includes all things, stars and stones, rivers and trees, animals and humans, all of it interconnected, all of it one. Your breathing is very slow now, barely perceptible, your body at complete rest. Your mind has grown quiet, thoughts appearing less and less frequently, like the last stars fading as dawn approaches, like the last ripples dying away on a pond's surface. You are entering that space between waking and sleeping, that threshold where consciousness meets unconsciousness, where the known world gives way to the realm of dreams. In this space, time has no meaning. Past and future collapse into an eternal now. You are simultaneously the Babylonian astronomer recording stars, the Baghdad scholar translating texts, the Icelandic skald telling stories, the Chinese poet composing verses, the Maya priest charting Venus, the Timbuktu scholar studying manuscripts, and yourself, here, now, drifting toward sleep. All of these experiences are happening simultaneously in the eternal present that underlies linear time. All of these evenings are the same evening, repeating endlessly, variations on the eternal theme of daylight fading, darkness falling, humans seeking rest and finding it in sleep's embrace. Let go now completely. Release your grip on waking consciousness, that grip you have maintained all day, that tight hold on awareness and control. Simply open your hand and let consciousness fall away, like releasing a balloon that floats upward into the sky, growing smaller and smaller until it disappears entirely, leaving only the vast, empty sky, the infinite space that was there all along, unnoticed because you were focused on the balloon. The vast, empty sky of pure consciousness, of awareness without content, of being without doing. This is what lies beneath all our busy thinking, all our striving and planning, all our fears and desires. This is what remains when everything else has been stripped away. This is what you are in your deepest essence, not the thoughts or the body or the personality, but the awareness itself, the witnessing presence that observes all experience without being changed by it. But even this understanding, this profound recognition, must be released now. Even spiritual insight is still a form of thinking, and thinking must cease for sleep to arrive. Let go of everything, including the effort to let go. Simply be, and then stop even that, dissolving entirely into the darkness that is not dark but luminous, into the silence that is not empty but full, into the nothing that is everything. You are sleeping now, or so close to sleep that the distinction has become meaningless. These words reach you from a great distance, if they reach you at all, like sounds heard underwater, muffled and strange, losing their meaning, becoming just vibrations, just rhythm, just the gentle pulse of existence itself, breathing in and breathing out, being and not being. The eternal cycle that has no beginning and no end. Sleep deeply, sleep peacefully, sleep now. Rest in the eternal arms that have held all beings, that will hold all beings yet to come. Rest in the knowledge that you are part of something infinite, something that cannot be destroyed or diminished. Rest in the darkness that is not darkness, but the womb from which all light is born, to which all light returns, only to be born again. The stars will overhead in their appointed courses. The earth turns, bringing day to some regions while bringing night to others. The moon waxes and wanes. The seasons cycle through their eternal round. And through all of this, humans sleep and wake, each sleep a little death, each waking a little rebirth, each cycle bringing us closer to the final sleep from which there is no waking, or perhaps to the final waking from which there is no sleep. But that is far away, in a future that may never come. For now, there is only this, the soft darkness, the quiet peace, the gentle embrace of sleep. Good night, dear traveler. Good night to all the astronomers and scholars and poets and storytellers who have come before. Good night to all who will come after. Good night to the eternal evening that never ends, that holds us all in its tender care. Sleep. Silence. The words fade completely away, leaving only breath, only heartbeat, only the infinite peace of deep sleep, where no dreams disturb, where consciousness has dissolved entirely, where there is only the vast, luminous darkness that is both nothing and everything, both ending and beginning, both death and life, both sleep and the promise of awakening.